A crying maid's toddler stopped the billionaire's wedding with just one sentence. "You have no right to be here," the security guard said, grabbing Elena's arm so hard she nearly dropped her daughter. "This is a private wedding. Leave now." But little Mia looked straight past the guard, straight past the roses and the champagne and the 200 guests in their finest clothes, and said 4 words that made the entire ballroom go silent. "Daddy, why are you crying?" The morning had started like every other morning for Elena Vasquez. Her alarm went off at 5. Mia was already awake and pulling at her hair, and the coffee maker in her tiny apartment sputtered like it was giving its last breath. She dressed quickly, pulled Mia's curls into 2 small puffs, packed the daycare bag, and told herself what she told herself every single day. "You are fine. You are strong. You have everything under control." She did not have everything under control. The text had come the night before, and she had read it so many times the words had stopped making sense. It was from a number she had deleted but never forgotten. It said only this: "I'm getting married tomorrow. I thought you should know. I'm sorry, Elena." No name. No explanation. Just those 3 sentences sitting on her screen like a small, quiet bomb. She had sat on the edge of her bed for a long time after that, Mia asleep beside her, one tiny hand curled under her cheek. She had looked at her daughter's face, the way her lashes fanned out against her brown skin, the small curve of her nose, and she had made a decision that she already knew was probably a terrible one. She was going to go, not to cause a scene, not to beg. She told herself it was just for closure. She told herself she just needed to see it happen with her own eyes so that the part of her that had been waiting, the part she refused to admit existed, would finally stop waiting. She needed to shut a door that had been open for 3 years. She put on her best dress. It was navy blue, simple, nothing close to what the guests would be wearing, but it was clean and it was pressed, and when she looked in the mirror, she thought she looked like a woman who had survived something hard. She supposed she had. The Whitmore Grand Hotel was 40 minutes by bus. She had never been inside it. The ceilings were so high they made her feel small the moment she walked through the doors, and everything smelled like fresh flowers and money. White roses everywhere. Gold chairs arranged in perfect rows. A string quartet playing something soft and elegant near the entrance of the ballroom. Mia's eyes went wide. "Flowers," she whispered, like it was a secret. "Yes, baby," Elena whispered back. "Lots of flowers." She had not planned for the security. She had not planned for much of anything, if she was being honest with herself. 2 men in dark suits stood at the ballroom entrance checking names against a list, and Elena stood 15 feet away holding Mia against her hip, feeling the sweat building on her palms. She had come all this way. She did not know what she was going to do now. She almost left. She had actually turned around when she heard his voice. Not directed at her. He was talking to someone near the side hallway, his back to her, one hand pressed flat against the wall. He was wearing a charcoal suit, no tie yet, his dark hair slightly less controlled than she remembered. She had not seen Marcus Whitmore in almost 3 years. Not since the night he told her they could not do this anymore, that his family's expectations were not something he could keep fighting, that he was sorry, that she deserved better than someone who would always choose his legacy over his heart. She had believed him. She had even understood him. That was the part that had broken her, actually. Understanding him. He laughed at something the other person said, and the sound hit her somewhere deep in her chest. Mia's head turned toward the sound too, and for one terrifying second Elena thought her daughter somehow knew. But Mia was 3. She did not know anything about Marcus Whitmore. She had never met him. Elena had made sure of that. Or at least she had tried. What happened next was not something Elena planned or staged or even fully registered before it was already done. One of the security guards spotted her standing off to the side, noticed she had no wristband, and walked over with the particular kind of authority that people use when they want to embarrass someone quietly. "You have no right to be here," he said, grabbing her arm. "This is a private wedding. Leave now." His grip was harder than it needed to be. Elena gasped. Mia, startled by the sudden movement, turned and looked past the guard, past the roses, past everything, and fixed her big brown eyes directly on the man 30 feet away who had just gone very, very still. "Daddy, why are you crying?" The string quartet stopped. Not all at once, but one instrument after another, like they too were trying to hear what had just happened. Conversations dropped off. Heads turned. The guard loosened his grip, without realizing he had done it. Marcus Whitmore turned around slowly. His face was the face of a man who had just heard something that rearranged every piece of the world he thought he understood. He was not crying. He had not been crying. But the way Mia said it, with total certainty, with the simple confidence of a child who has never learned to doubt what she sees, made 3 or 4 people near them look at his eyes, just to check. Elena could not breathe. She had not prepared for this. She wanted to say something, explain something, but her mouth would not work. She just stood there holding her daughter, while 200 people in their finest clothes stared at her, and the man she had never stopped loving stared at her too, and somewhere behind him a door opened, and a woman in a white dress stepped into the hallway and stopped. The woman was beautiful, tall, polished, the kind of put-together that came from a lifetime of being treated like someone worth looking at. She had flowers in her hair and a small smile that was already fading as she took in the scene in front of her. Her name was Claire Ashford. Elena knew that from the gossip columns she had told herself to stop reading. Claire looked at Marcus. Then she looked at Elena. Then she looked at Mia. She was smart. Elena could see it happen in real time, the pieces clicking into place behind those sharp blue eyes. She was not a woman who missed things. "Marcus," Claire said, her voice perfectly level. "Who is this?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "That's what I'd like to know too," said a voice from behind Elena, and she turned to find a woman she had never seen before, older, with Marcus's same jaw and posture, wearing a look that could have cut glass. His mother. Elena held Mia tighter. Mia, completely unbothered by any of this, pointed at the white roses along the wall and said, "Pretty." Nobody laughed. Nobody moved. And Marcus Whitmore, one of the wealthiest men in the country, the man who was supposed to be getting married in 45 minutes, took one step forward and said the last thing Elena expected him to say. "She's right," he said quietly. "I have been crying. I've been crying for 3 years and pretending I wasn't." Claire's smile did not break. That was the thing Elena noticed first after Marcus spoke. The smile simply stopped being a smile and became something else, something careful and contained, the expression of a woman deciding very quickly how much she was willing to show a room full of people. "I think," Claire said, smoothing the front of her dress with one hand, "that this conversation should happen somewhere private." It was a reasonable thing to say. It was the right thing to say. And yet the way she said it made clear she was not asking. Claire Ashford had been managing uncomfortable situations since she was old enough to understand what family reputation meant, and she was not about to let her wedding morning become a story that got told at dinner parties for the next decade. Marcus looked at Elena. Elena looked at him. Mia had found a loose thread on Elena's sleeve and was pulling it with great concentration. "Okay," Marcus said. They were taken to a small room just off the main corridor, the kind of room hotels kept for exactly these situations, beige walls, a round table, chairs that were comfortable enough to suggest care, but not comfortable enough to suggest you were welcome to stay long. Claire sat on one side. Marcus stood near the window. Elena sat with Mia in her lap, and Mia immediately began reorganizing the decorative items on the table, moving a small vase 3 inches to the left, and then 3 inches back. Marcus's mother had followed them in without being invited. No one had told her to leave. "Start talking," she said, directed at Elena with the precision of someone who had never in her life been told her directness was a problem. "Virginia," Marcus said. "Don't Virginia me. There is a child in this room who just called you daddy in front of my entire guest list, and I want to know why." Elena looked at Marcus. This was the part she had not rehearsed, the part she had not let herself think about on the bus ride over, because thinking about it would have meant admitting she had come here for more than closure. "She doesn't know him," Elena said, keeping her voice steady. "She's never met him. She's 3. She calls every man she sees daddy. She does it at the grocery store, at the park, everywhere. It's a phase. Her pediatrician says it's completely normal for children who—" She stopped herself. The room was very quiet. "For children who what?" Virginia said. Elena looked down at Mia, who was now attempting to balance the vase on the edge of the table with extreme focus and zero awareness of the tension in the room. "For children who don't have a father present," Elena finished. Virginia's expression shifted. Just slightly, just for a second, but Elena caught it. Not softening exactly. More like recalibrating. Claire, who had not said anything since they sat down, folded her hands on the table. "So she's not his?" "No," Elena said. And then, because she had promised herself a long time ago that she would not be the kind of person who let fear make her smaller than she was, she added, "At least, I don't know that she is." The room went several degrees colder. Marcus pushed off the wall. "What does that mean?" "It means what it sounds like it means, Marcus." "Elena." "We were together for almost 2 years," she said, and her voice only cracked once, which she counted as a victory. "You ended things in October. Mia was born in July. I did the math. 100 times, and every time I got an answer I didn't know what to do with, so I did what I thought was best for her, which was to raise her without involving someone who had already made it very clear that she and I were not part of his future." Marcus sat down. It was the sitting down of a man whose legs had stopped cooperating. Claire looked at him, not with anger, or not only with anger, with something more complicated. "You said you hadn't been seriously involved with anyone before me." "I hadn't been. I mean, I was, but it was complicated." "She just told you that child might be yours, and your explanation is that it was complicated." "Claire." "I'm not angry," Claire said, in the tone of someone who was deciding whether to be angry and had not finished deciding yet. "I'm trying to understand what is happening in this room." Virginia stood up. She was not a tall woman, but she had the posture of someone who had never needed height to be intimidating. She walked to where Elena was sitting and looked down at Mia, who looked back up at her with complete fearlessness, the way only very small children and very old souls can look at intimidating people. Mia pointed at Virginia's necklace. "Shiny," she said. Virginia's jaw tightened, then loosened. She looked at the child for a long moment, at the shape of her nose and the particular way her brow furrowed when she was concentrating. "Marcus," Virginia said, without turning around. "I know," he said quietly. "You know what?" Claire asked. Nobody answered her. And that silence, Elena realized, was its own kind of answer. Because Virginia Whitmore had just looked at Mia the way you look at something that belongs to you, the way you look at something that carries your blood, and even if no test had been done, even if no document had been signed, the woman had seen something in that little face that she recognized. Mia held up the vase. I fixed it, she announced. Elena pulled her daughter close and pressed her lips to the top of her head and tried very hard not to fall apart in a beige hotel room in front of the woman her maybe daughter's maybe father was supposed to be marrying in 38 minutes. Outside the door, she could hear guests beginning to murmur. Somewhere down the hall, the wedding planner was having a very stressful morning. Claire stood up. She was still perfectly composed. She was, Elena thought, the kind of woman who would be perfectly composed at the end of the world, and under different circumstances Elena might have admired that. I need 20 minutes, Claire said to Marcus. Alone. Without your mother in the room. She glanced at Virginia. Please. Virginia looked at her son. Something passed between them, something old and loaded and private. Fine, Virginia said. She walked to the door and opened it, then paused with her hand on the frame. She looked back at Elena. You'll stay, she said. It was not a question. Elena nodded. Virginia left. The door clicked shut. Claire sat back down and looked at the table for a moment, gathering herself, and when she looked up her eyes were bright but dry. I need to ask you something, she said to Elena, and I need you to tell me the truth. Okay, Elena said. Do you still love him? The vase slipped from Mia's hands and hit the table with a sharp crack, and everyone in the room jumped, and Mia burst into tears, and in the chaos of a crying toddler and a cracked vase and 3 adults who were all holding their breath, Elena realized that she did not need to answer the question. The fact that she could not make herself say no had already answered it. Claire did not cry. Elena had half expected her to, had braced for it even, the kind of tears that come from a woman who has just watched her wedding morning crack down the middle like that small ceramic vase. But Claire Ashford sat across from her with dry eyes and a stillness that was almost unnerving, the kind of stillness that comes not from not feeling things, but from having spent a lifetime deciding exactly which feelings were worth letting out in front of other people. Mia had stopped crying. She was now sitting in Elena's lap, pressing her palm flat against the table over and over, watching her handprint appear and fade in the slight condensation from the water glasses. In and out. In and out. Unbothered. I'm not going to pretend, Claire said finally, that I haven't known something was wrong. Marcus looked at her. Claire. Don't, she said it quietly. Not harshly. Just firmly, the way you say don't to someone you respect enough to be honest with. Let me finish. He closed his mouth. You have been kind to me, she said. You have been thoughtful and present, and everything that looks right from the outside. But there is a difference between a man who is with you and a man who is there. And for the last 8 months, Marcus, you have been there. You have not been with me, she paused. I told myself it was stress. The company, the merger, your father's anniversary being in the spring. I made excuses because I wanted them to be true. Elena stared at the table. She was not supposed to be hearing this. She was not supposed to be sitting here watching a woman dismantle something she had built while holding the possible proof of why it could never have been fully solid. She's not yours, she said suddenly. Both of them looked at her. Probably. Statistically. I was seeing someone else around the same time, a man named Daniel. We dated for about 4 months. He moved to Portland before I knew I was pregnant, and I never told him either. I haven't told anyone. I've just been raising her and telling myself it didn't matter who her father was, because she had me, and that was enough. The room was quiet except for Mia's palm prints. But Elena continued because she had started now, and the only thing worse than saying it would be stopping halfway, there is a chance. A real chance. And I came here today telling myself it was for closure, but I think I came here because she is getting older, and she is going to start asking questions, and I needed to know if there was someone I owed those questions an answer to. I owed her that. I owed it to her even if I was terrified of what finding out would cost. Marcus rubbed both hands over his face. He looked exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with the morning. "How big a chance?" he asked. "I don't know. I'm not a doctor. The timing overlaps. Daniel and I were not. It was casual. With you it was." She stopped. "It was not casual," he said. "No," she agreed. "It was not casual." Claire stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the hotel gardens were perfect and green and completely indifferent to what was happening in this room. A groundskeeper was trimming something near the fountain. Somewhere out there, 200 people were sitting in gold chairs watching the minutes tick past the ceremony start time. "I want to ask you something else," Claire said, still facing the window. "And this one is for Marcus." "All right," he said. "If that little girl is yours," she said, "what does that change for you?" "About today." "About everything." The question hung in the air. Marcus looked at Mia. Mia had moved on from the handprints and was now attempting to climb down from Elena's lap with the focused determination of someone who has spotted something interesting on the floor. Elena steadied her automatically, the practiced ease of a mother's hands, and Mia toddled 3 steps to the chair beside her and grabbed its leg for balance and looked very pleased with herself. "It changes everything," Marcus said. Claire turned around. "Not because of her," he added quickly, carefully. "Not just because of her. Because if she is mine, it means I have been absent for 3 years from something that mattered, and the reason I was absent was fear, and the reason I was afraid was that I had convinced myself that choosing what my family wanted and choosing what I actually wanted were 2 different paths that could never meet. And I spent 3 years trying to walk the path that made everyone around me comfortable." He looked at Claire. "Including you. And I am sorry for that. You deserved someone who chose you completely. I never gave you that." Claire pressed her lips together. When she spoke again, her voice was very controlled. "Was it always her? Even after you ended it?" A long pause. "I tried. I genuinely tried to let it go." Claire nodded slowly. She picked up her small clutch from the table, the white satin one that matched her dress, and she held it in both hands and looked at it for a moment like she was deciding whether to throw it. She did not throw it. "I'm going to go talk to my parents," she said. "They're going to be furious. My mother is going to need at least 3 glasses of that expensive champagne to survive this morning. My father is going to want to sue someone, possibly you." She said this last part to Marcus without heat, almost wryly. "I need an hour." "Claire," Marcus said. "I'm sorry. I know you are." She looked at Elena then, one long, clear look. "Take care of her," she said. It was impossible to tell which her she meant. She walked to the door and opened it, and the muffled sounds of the hotel swelled briefly, and then the door clicked shut again, and she was gone. Elena and Marcus sat in the sudden quiet. Mia had found a button on the carpet and was examining it with the intense scholarly focus that 3-year-olds bring to random small objects. "I don't know what happens now," Elena said. "Neither do I," Marcus said. "I want you to know that I didn't come here to blow up your life. I want you to know that I was actually trying to let you go. I know. And I want you to know that if the test comes back and she's not yours, I will walk away and you will never hear from me again, and you can rebuild whatever you need to rebuild, and I won't." "Elena." "What?" "Can you stop talking for a second?" She stopped. He was looking at her the way he used to look at her, the way she had spent 3 years trying to forget and never fully managed to, like she was the only thing in the room worth looking at. Like everything else was just furniture. "I have a 7-month-old son," he said. She blinked. What?" "His name is Noah." His mother is a woman I was with briefly last year. It lasted 3 months. She found out she was pregnant, and we agreed to co-parent. He lives with her in Greenwich. I see him every weekend. I was going to tell Claire everything before the wedding, but he exhaled. I kept finding reasons not to. Elena stared at him. You have a baby. Yes. And you were getting married today. Apparently not, Marcus. I know. Your life is a disaster, he said. Yes, I'm aware. And then impossibly, he laughed. Just briefly, just a small, exhausted, incredulous laugh. And Elena heard herself laugh, too. The kind of laugh that is only one layer above crying. Mia looked up at them both and grinned, delighted by the sound, and held up the button she had found. I found it, she said proudly. You did, baby, Elena said, her voice unsteady. Good job. Marcus leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees and looked at this child who might or might not be his, and Elena watched him looking, and neither of them said anything for a long time. Virginia Whitmore was not a woman who waited well. She had spent 3 minutes in the hallway before deciding that standing outside a door while her son's life rearranged itself on the other side of it was not something she was built for, and she had taken herself down to the hotel bar, ordered a sparkling water she did not want, and sat there composing herself with the rigid discipline of a woman who had survived a difficult marriage, a hostile corporate board, and 2 sons who had each in their own way nearly given her a heart attack before. The age of 40. The bartender, a young man who was visibly unhappy about being asked to work during what was supposed to be a party, slid her glass across the counter without making eye contact. Virginia did not notice. She was thinking about the child. It was the nose. Virginia's family had a particular nose, not unattractive, slightly upturned at the tip with a faint asymmetry on the left side that showed up in photographs and drove her own mother crazy, and had been passed along with quiet determination through 4 generations. Marcus had it. His brother had it. Virginia had looked at that little girl in the beige room and seen it on a 3-year-old face looking back at her with absolutely zero idea what she was representing. She took a sip of sparkling water and looked at her reflection in the mirror behind the bar. She had not been kind to Elena Vasquez. She knew that. When Marcus had first mentioned the girl, 2 years before he ended things, Virginia had done what she had always done when something threatened the architecture of the life she had built. She had applied pressure. She had made clear, through the precise and ancient language of class and family expectations, that a housekeeper's daughter with a community college degree was not the foundation on which a Whitmore future was built. She had not screamed or threatened. She had simply made the alternative very uncomfortable. Marcus had folded. She had believed at the time that this was the right outcome. She was no longer sure. A hand touched her shoulder, and she turned to find her younger son, Patrick, standing beside her in his wedding guest suit, looking at her with a particular expression he had worn since childhood whenever he knew something was wrong and was deciding how much to acknowledge it. "The guests are restless," he said, sliding onto the stool beside her. "Carol Davidson has eaten an entire bread basket. Someone told the string quartet to take a break, and they've been playing on their phones for 20 minutes. Claire's maid of honor is doing laps." "Where is Claire?" "In the bridal suite. With her mother." He paused. "Not great energy in that room, from what I could tell through the door." Virginia nodded. "Do you want to tell me what's happening?" Patrick said. "Or do you want me to keep pretending I don't know that there is a small child somewhere in this hotel who may or may not be my niece?" Virginia looked at him. "How much did you hear?" "Enough. I was in the corridor when she said it. He ordered a coffee he clearly needed." "She looks like him, Mom." "I know. She looks like Dad, actually. Around the eyes." Virginia set down her glass. She was not going to cry. She had decided she was not going to cry before she left the house this morning, and she was going to honor that decision. Your father would have handled this terribly, she said.
Yes.
He would have written a check and called a lawyer. And then written a larger check. And then blamed Marcus. And then gone to the club. Patrick smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind people share when they are making peace with someone they have lost and someone they never quite had. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. She turned her glass in a small circle on the bar. I told her to stay. The girl, Elena. Why? Because she was about to run. I could see it. She had the look of someone who had talked themselves into something brave and was now deeply regretting it. Virginia paused. And because if that child is Marcus's, I am not going to be the woman who let her walk out of another door. Patrick looked at her for a moment. That's actually a decent thing to say, Mom. Don't push it. He drank his coffee. Outside the bar, they could hear the gentle, controlled chaos of a wedding that was not happening on schedule. Footsteps, murmured conversations, the particular anxious energy of 200 people in their finest clothes being told, politely, to please be patient. What does she do? Patrick asked. Elena. She works in hotel management now. Mid-level. She's been at the courtyard by the airport for 18 months. Virginia said this without looking at her son, which told him she had known this information for some time. She got her degree. Online at night, while she was pregnant. Business administration. Patrick was quiet. I had her looked into, Virginia said. Last year.
I don't know why.
I told myself it was due diligence. Was it? A long pause. No. The bartender came by and offered to refill the sparkling water. Virginia waved him off. I wanted to know if she was all right, Virginia said, and the words came out smaller than she intended. I wanted to know that what I did hadn't, she stopped. Cleared her throat. It doesn't matter. It does, actually, Patrick said. Yes, she said quietly. I know. Upstairs, somewhere in the architecture of this very expensive hotel, her son was sitting in a beige room with a woman he had never stopped loving and a child who might carry their blood. Claire Ashford was sitting in the bridal suite with a shattered mourning and a mother who was almost certainly making it worse. And 200 guests were eating bread and checking their phones and constructing theories. Virginia Whitmore picked up her sparkling water, finished it, set the glass down with a precise and final click, and stood up. Where are you going? Patrick asked. To fix something, she said. Several things, starting with the one I broke first. She straightened her jacket. She walked out of the bar. She did not look back. Elena heard the knock and knew before the door opened who it would be. There was something about the precision of it. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, neither hesitant nor aggressive, that was distinctly Virginia Whitmore. Marcus straightened in his chair. Mia, who had fallen asleep against Elena's shoulder in the last 20 minutes with the sudden absolute certainty of a toddler who has decided nap time is nap time, regardless of circumstances, did not stir. Virginia came in. She closed the door behind her. She looked at the sleeping child for a moment, and something moved across her face that she did not fully manage to suppress, something unguarded and almost tender, before she composed herself and sat down in the chair Claire had vacated. I owe you an apology, she said to Elena. The directness of it caught Elena off guard. She had prepared for many versions of this conversation. She had prepared for accusations, for lawyers being mentioned, for the kind of cold, polite war that wealthy families wage when they feel their territory is threatened. She had not prepared for this. Okay, Elena said carefully. 3 years ago, I made it very clear to my son that his relationship with you is not acceptable. I did not use those words. I did not have to. I am very good at making things clear without saying them explicitly, and I used that skill against you, and I should not have. You were a young woman who was in love with my son, and I treated you like a problem to be managed. Virginia folded her hands on the table. I am telling you this not because it changes anything that happened, but because I have spent the last 8 months watching my son go through the motions of a life he constructed to please me, and I understand now that I have been paying for my interference, and so has he, and so have you, and so has that child. Elena looked at Mia. Asleep, Mia looked younger. The small tension she carried even in waking hours dissolved into pure softness. She had Elena's mouth, and Elena had always not let herself finish that thought. I don't need an apology, Elena said.
Not coldly, just honestly.
I mean, I appreciate it, but I didn't come here for that. I know why you came, Virginia said, and I think it was brave. I think it was possibly unhinged. The corner of Virginia's mouth moved. Not quite a smile. The ghost of one. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Marcus made a sound that might have been a laugh if it weren't so tired. There needs to be a test, Virginia said. A proper one. I assume you both agree. Yes, Marcus said. Yes, Elena said. I can have something arranged this week, a private lab, full discretion. The results will go to both of you simultaneously, no intermediaries. She looked at Elena. Whatever the result is, I want you to know that it will not change how this family responds. If she is Marcus's daughter, she will be treated as such. Fully. Financially, legally, personally. I will not allow any other outcome. Elena stared at her. You don't know me. You don't know her. I know what I saw in that room, Virginia said. And I know what my conscience has been telling me for 3 years that I have been choosing not to listen to. She paused. I am listening now. The door opened again without a knock, and Elena turned to find Claire standing in the doorway. She had changed out of her wedding dress. She was wearing a simple cream blouse and dark trousers, her hair still pinned up, the flowers gone. She looked like herself, Elena thought. More herself, actually, than she had in the wedding dress. More real. Claire looked at Virginia. I need a few minutes with Elena, she said. Alone. Virginia raised an eyebrow. Claire. Please, Claire said. It was not a shaky word. It was the pleas of someone who knows exactly what they are asking for. Virginia stood. She looked at Marcus.
Come, she said.
A word for a son, not a child. An invitation, almost. Marcus stood. He looked at Elena, one long look, and she nodded very slightly, and he followed his mother out. The door closed. Claire sat down across from Elena. Mia was still asleep. The room felt different with just the two of them in it, quieter, less loaded. I'm not here to fight you, Claire said. I know. I need you to understand something. Not for him. Not even really for you. Just because I think it needs to be said out loud by somebody. She took a breath. I knew about you. Elena went still. What? Not everything. Not about. She glanced at Mia. Not about her. But I knew there had been someone. I knew he had cared about someone before me in a way he had not cared about me. He never said your name. He didn't have to. There are ways a person is absent from a room even while they are physically standing in it, and Marcus has been absent from a lot of rooms for a long time. She looked at her hands. I told myself I could be enough. I told myself that love is a choice, and that if I was patient and steady, he would choose me completely. And I believe that is true, as a principle. I just think it was not true for us. Not with this between you. Elena did not know what to say. She settled for the truth. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't do anything wrong. Claire looked up. I want to ask you something, and I want you to promise to answer honestly. All right. If the test comes back negative, Claire said, if that little girl is not his, what do? Do you go home and close the door and let this be over? Elena thought about it, actually thought about it, sitting with the full weight of the question. I don't know, she finally said. I want to say yes. I want to be the kind of person who can do that. But I came here today, and the fact that I came here tells me something about myself that I've been arguing with for 3 years. Claire nodded slowly. That's honest. I'm sorry, Elena said again. I know that's not what you needed to hear. It's what I needed to hear, Claire said. It's what I already knew. She stood up. She smoothed her blouse in that same composed gesture. I called off the wedding, officially, about 15 minutes ago. I've spoken to my parents, to the guests, to the coordinator. Everyone is being very gracious about it in public and almost certainly furious in private. She almost smiled. My mother has had 4 glasses of champagne. Elena almost smiled back. I heard that was a possibility. For what it's worth, Claire said, pausing at the door. She seems wonderful. Your daughter. The way she looked at that security guard like he was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. She has very good instincts. Elena looked at Mia. She really does. Claire opened the door and walked out, and her footsteps went down the hall in a direction that sounded, to Elena, like someone walking forward. Mia stirred. She opened her eyes, blinked at the ceiling, then looked up at her mother. Hungry, she announced. I know, baby, Elena said. I know. The results came on a Thursday. Elena was at work when her phone buzzed. She was in the middle of a conversation with a vendor about linen inventory, a conversation that had been going on for 20 minutes longer than it needed to, and when she felt the vibration against her hip, she made herself finish the call before she looked. She had been making herself wait a lot lately. She had found, in the 9 days since she walked out of the Whitmore Grand Hotel holding a sleeping toddler, that waiting had become a skill she was slowly, carefully building. She went to the break room. She sat down. She held the phone in both hands. The email was from the lab Virginia had arranged. It was professional and clean and used medical language that stripped the whole thing down to percentages and markers and probability statistics, and somewhere in the middle of the second paragraph it said, with a quiet certainty of science, what Elena had spent 3 years both dreading and hoping for. Mia Jane Vasquez was, with a probability of 99.97%, the biological daughter of Marcus Elliot Whitmore. Elena sat in the break room for a long time. A colleague came in, said something cheerful about the coffee being fresh, and left. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, she could hear the lobby, the normal sounds of a hotel in the middle of a Thursday, and she sat inside all of it and let the number settle into her. She called her mother first. Not Marcus. Her mother, who lived 40 minutes away and who had known something was wrong 3 weeks ago when Elena showed up at her door, looking like a woman who had just made a decision she could not take back, and who had held Mia and fed them both dinner, and not asked a single question because she knew her daughter well enough to know that questions would come when Elena was ready for them. Mama, she said. Mija. Just from the tone, her mother knew. Mothers always know. It's positive. A pause. Are you okay? I don't know yet. I think so. I think I will be. Where is Mia? Daycare. I'm picking her up at 5. Bring her here. Tonight. I'll make food. We can talk, or we don't have to talk, whatever you need. Elena closed her eyes. The particular relief of being loved by someone who does not make you explain yourself. Okay, she said. Okay, yes. She texted Marcus after she hung up. Just 2 words. I know. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. He had been waiting too. 5 seconds later he wrote back. Me too. Can I call you tonight? She stared at the screen. Behind those 4 words was everything, the whole enormous weight of what had been confirmed and what it meant and what would happen next, the conversations about custody and logistics, and how you explain to a 3-year-old that the world is bigger than she knew. The question of what she and Marcus were to each other now, something they could not answer in a text message or probably in one conversation or possibly in several. She typed back,
Yes.
After 8. Mia will be at my mom's. Then she put her phone in her pocket and went back to work because Mia needed her health insurance and the linen vendor was still waiting, and life, she had learned, does not pause for the moments that rearrange it. You carry the rearrangement with you, and you keep moving. Marcus called at 8:15.
Hey, he said. Hey, she said.
A small silence. Not uncomfortable. The kind of silence that exists between 2 people who have known each other well enough to be quiet together. I want to meet her, he said. Properly. When you're ready. Whenever that is. On your terms. I know. And I want you to know that I'm not. I'm not coming back into your life expecting things to be the way they were. I know it's been 3 years. I know you built something without me, and I know I don't have the right to walk in and… Marcus.
Yeah.
I know, she said. I know all of that. We'll figure it out. Okay. But I need you to understand something first, before we figure anything out. Tell me. Mia is the center of this. Everything else, whatever this is between us, whatever it becomes or doesn't become, is secondary. She is 3 years old, and she is going to have questions, and she is going to need stability more than she needs a love story. So if you come into her life, you come in with both feet and you stay. You don't get to leave again when it gets complicated. I know. I need more than I know, Marcus. I need to see it.
Then I'll show you, he said.
As many times as it takes. She was quiet. Outside her window, the city was doing its normal Thursday night things, cars and lights, and the distant sound of someone's music turned up too high.
Noah, she said.
Tell me about him. She heard Marcus exhale, not with relief exactly, with something more like gratitude. He is 7 months old, and he has absolutely no interest in sleeping before midnight, and he is the most stubborn person I have ever met, including my mother. A warmth in his voice that was entirely new or entirely old. It was hard to tell. He's going to destroy everything when he starts walking. Elena smiled at the ceiling. Mia destroyed my bookshelf at 14 months. Pulled the whole thing over. Looked me right in the eye while she did it. They would either be best friends or enemies. Probably both at the same time. Probably, he said. Another quiet. This one settled differently. Like something that had been held at a distance was just slightly, carefully, moving closer. I don't know what we are, Elena said. Neither do I, Marcus said. But I know what I was doing wrong before. And I know that I am done choosing what looks right from the outside over what is actually real. I don't care what the board thinks. I don't care what the society columns say. I don't care if people talk. I care about 2 kids who deserve a father who shows up. And I care about, he stopped. Go ahead, she said softly. I care about the woman who came to a wedding she had no business attending because she was brave enough to choose her daughter's future over her own fear. And then had to stand there while a 3-year-old accidentally said out loud the thing everyone in that room was too polite to say. Elena laughed. Actually laughed. From somewhere real. She's going to be a handful, Elena said. She already is, Marcus said. She gets that honestly. And somewhere across the city, in a hotel room or a town car, or wherever Virginia Whitmore was at 8:30 on a Thursday night, a grandmother who had not yet been told she was one was probably also waiting, learning slowly how to wait, how to listen, how to arrive at a door she had once closed and knock 3 times, evenly, with something that looked nothing like the woman she had been and everything like the woman she was still becoming. Mia Jane Vasquez would meet her father on a Saturday morning at a small park 3 blocks from Elena's apartment, on a day when the weather was unremarkable and nobody was dressed up and nothing was arranged to look like anything except what it was. She walked up to him, looked at him for a long, serious moment, and held out a dandelion she had pulled from the grass.
"I found it," she said.
Marcus took it.
"You did," he said.
His voice did not shake, but it was close. "Good job." And Mia, satisfied, turned around and ran back toward the swings, already done with the introduction, already on to the next thing, already living in the easy forward motion that belongs only to children who have never been taught to look back. Elena stood beside Marcus, and they watched her go, and neither of them said anything, and it was exactly enough.